morning, everyone. This is August 5th. This is the 9 a.m. lecture by our friend, Reverend Kent Rogers, who was very sad not to be with us, and he told me that his whole family was sad not to be with us this year, but they were funded to take a trip to Australia to see relatives, and so they very gratefully accepted that, and we'll see them again next year. So Kent very gracefully recorded a lecture to send along to us today.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kent Rogers, and I'm a pastor at the Lord's New Church in Bernathen. And I regret that I can't be with you at Freiburg, but I'm grateful that I could offer this. The second coming is a loaf of barley bread, and this presentation will show how that might be true. So what is the second coming? Is it the Green 30? Is it the democratic revolutions that occurred right after the Revelation and perhaps inspired somehow by them? Is it the transcendentalists who took knowledge given in the Revelation and presented it into art in a way that is more accessible to the common person? Or is it great thinkers such as William James and Bill Wilson, who started the 12-step groups, who took knowledge from the Revelation and translated it into healing practices? Or is it coming through the churches that we belong to? Or finally, is it a loaf of barley bread? I will try to convince you that this is what the church, the second coming, I should say, is all about. Before we go forward, though, let's take a look at the heart and lungs. And this is from Secrets of Heaven, 2853. The church is like the heart and lungs, while those outside the church answer to the parts of the body which are supported and live from the heart and lungs. Hence it is manifest that without a church somewhere on earth, the human race could not subsist, as the body could not without the heart and lungs. That's a bold statement, that the church is like the heart and lungs and the rest of the human race is supported by them. In fact, only exists because of that church, the heart and lungs. Red blood cells are a very important part of the circulatory system and also the pulmonary system, so let's take a look at them. They come out of bone marrow. Interesting how the most hard and white substance in our body produces the most fluid and red substance in our body. You can kind of see that as perhaps a strict society, religious society, or perhaps an internal strict morality gives birth to some kind of love. And red blood cells, as you can see here, are missing nucleus. And also they have hemoglobin, a type of iron that makes them red. And the hemoglobin, as well as the concave shape, helps the oxygen bind to them so that these cells can distribute the oxygen to the rest of the body. Now, oxygen is a good symbol for truth, isn't it? Our lungs breathe in oxygen and then it's given to the rest of the body and is used to live. And we think of respiration, spirit, and we breathe in the things of spirit, but we need to translate it into something usable by the body. And these cells are what do it. Now, iron represents, this is from Secrets of Heaven 421, the doctrine of natural good and truth. Now, this is truth about our lives and spiritual truth in the natural plane. So it's talking about our lives here on earth. And in a sense, each of us is a truth. Each human being is a truth about what a consciousness experiences in the given parameters of time and space and genetics and influences from society. What resulted when this point of consciousness had all of these experiences? That is a truth. So all of us have a truth. And just as the Word has an internal sense, despite the terrible things that happen in the Bible, there's an internal sense. And this is always beautiful. I think that's true with our lives too. Our lives are sometimes messy, but there's an internal sense, and it's always beautiful. It always is involving God's mercy. So, let's put it all together. Truth, oxygen, is deliverable to the rest of the body when it is couched in selfless love. A person who has adopted or received selfless love, hence no nucleus, and is focused on delivering it in the natural plane, iron, right? And so selfless acts of love in the natural plane is how truth can be best understood by the rest of the human race. And that does make sense. Here we have the picture of the woman clothed with the sun, and her son is said to rule with a rod of iron. We have that iron again. Now we know that this represents the doctrine of the new church, and that the woman herself is the church. So here again we have iron, natural plane. Something will rule on the natural plane, and we know that the Lord's rule is that of love. And the dragon is faith alone, which represents a lack of love, a lack of deeds. In Apocalypse Explained 1:5-7, we read, "Works are the final expression of love and of faith, and these exist in the actions we take. The whole of a person is in their deeds." The whole of a person is in their deeds. And until love expresses itself in actions, it doesn't actually yet exist. Until we act on love, it's not real. Angels are beautiful not from their good loves in themselves, but their good loves expressed in actions, because their body is the most external of them, just as actions are the most external form of love, a final expression. A person is their volition, but their volition is only that which is put into action. This is why the Lord says we are rewarded for our works. There's a real focus here on actions. And something that is often overlooked, I think, is found in Apocalypse Revealed 8:7-6. It says that the new heaven is below the former heavens. Now, this new heaven is the new church heaven. The new church on earth and this new heaven are associated with each other. The lowest heaven. Now, this doesn't mean we're the worst, or people in that heaven are the worst, or the church are the worst. It means that they're the final step, where all that has gone before, both in the evolution of human society and religion, and also in our own minds, the love and the perception of truth is finally produced out in the natural world. And that's a good thing. That's where the fullness of love is found, as we read. Now, the whole of the word we read in multiple places. One is 6,632 of Secrets of Heaven. The whole of the word is the doctrine of love and charity. The whole thing. So how do we best express that which is our doctrine? That every word from God is love and charity. Well, again, love and charity only exist in action. So the best way that we can express the ideas of our doctrine is within actions of love. And there are myriads of actions of love, myriads of types, myriads of subtypes. It's infinite, because God's love is infinite. Now, if we offer love to others in the natural world, therefore, we have expressed our doctrine in the most succinct and deeply true way possible. Selfless actions of love in the natural world are the most readily heard and understood expressions of doctrine. And when we give of ourselves to another, when we give bread or food to another on the natural plane, we are also giving spiritual bread and food to that other, because they are feeling loved, which is spiritual bread. They are knowing somebody cares about me. And that is the Lord's love. That is our bread. Everyone understands a smile. Now I want to talk to you about a few studies done that hit home this point. A man named Norbert Schwartz in 1987 published a paper called Soccer, Rooms, and the Quality of Your Life. In this study, he would leave a dime next to a photocopy machine in the university in which he worked. And then he would offer a survey to these people moments later after they left the copy room, asking about their well-being and their global sense of their life, whether it was generally good or bad. And he offered the same survey to those who didn't find a dime, because he didn't always put it there. And what he found is that having found a dime, increases sense of well-being and global sense of the value of one's own life. Just a simple dime makes you assess your life as better than if you hadn't found a dime. That's pretty amazing. Let's look at another study. This one's by Alice Eisen and Paula Levin. They did two studies, one in 72 and one in 74. The first is called Effects of Feeling Good on Helping, and then the second is called Further Studies on the Effects of Feeling Good on Helping. Now this came a decade before the other study. In this one, they would put a dime in a phone booth some of the time and not in the other half of the time. And then the guy finds the dime, and then a Confederate or an actor drops papers when the man leaves, or the woman, the phone booth. And what they found was if the participant found a dime, they were much more likely to help the person pick up papers. And then they did, again, that second study. Instead of having Confederates drop papers, they left a stamped envelope in the phone booth. And they wanted to see if people would be more likely to mail the letter if they had found a dime. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. If they found a dime, they were much more likely to send that letter. They did the same, but this time with unstamped envelopes, and the same result. Now, another study by Aaron Kay and Lee Ross in 2003 found that if a person read a list of words that included some of these types of words, positive words, words about getting along with others, now interdispersed within a list of non-positive words, just neutral words, they found that those people who read that list were much more likely to cooperate and look to group solutions than those who read a list of words that included such words as rude and aggressive. They were much less likely to work in cooperative ways and much more likely to work in competitive ways. Just a single word or a few words can make that change in a person's life. And now one final study. This one is by Nicholas Guggen and Marie-Agnes de Gale, 2009. The effect of smiling on helping behavior, smiling and Good Samaritan behavior. In this one, they would have a Confederate walk by in a mall and smile at someone. and then they would have the person drop their papers. And if there had been a Confederate who had first smiled at a person, those people were, again, much more likely to pick up papers and help someone than those who did not receive a smile. Except in this, it wasn't papers, it was computer diskettes in this particular study. So all of these studies show that even the smallest little positive experience in one's life causes a person to want to be more helpful. It brings up their mood, and then they want to love people. They just do have a feeling of love. That's the power of even the most simple acts of goodness. Now, this is a true story. There was a man named Tim Sanders, and he was a leadership coach as well as a former chief solutions officer at Yahoo. And he always told the people that he was training to say good things about their workers, to lift them up, to always be positive about what they do. And he practiced this too. And one time he was doing this very thing, and he was shocked that a few days later a man came up to him and gave him an Xbox. And Tim Sanders was curious. He said, why are you giving me this very expensive gift? And that man said, a few days ago you encouraged me. You gave me just a few words of affection and goodwill and hope. And that really changed me. I was about to go home and kill myself. I had a gun with bullets and it was loaded, ready to go. But your words changed my mind. So I sold the gun, bought the Xbox, and I want you to have it. The power of a few words saved a life. And this is another true story. In 1941, a woman named Zofia Bania, she was a poor Polish farm woman, didn't have enough money to pay for her groceries, and so she went to the grocery store and then realized she didn't have enough. The shopkeeper, Israel Rubinek, said, it's okay, just pay me when you can, take your groceries. A couple years later, the Nazis were invading Poland and rounding up Jewish people. And Zofia found the shopkeeper, Israel Rubinek, and his wife and said, please come to our house and hide. We have a crawl space that you can hide in. They did that. And for 2.5 years they lived there, and the Nazis frequently came to the house looking for Jews, even slept in the house feet away from where they were. After 2.5 years they were able to leave, and they had their life preserved, and they therefore saved their own lives just by giving someone a simple gift of telling them they can pay later. That's the power of simple acts of love. And now I'll tell you why the second coming is a loaf of barley bread. This is from Judges 7. The people who are with you, said the Lord to Gideon, are too many for me. Hand Midian over to them. It is too many for me to hand Midian over to them. Otherwise Israel will become boastful, saying, my own power has saved me. Now therefore come, proclaim in the hearing of the people, saying, whoever is afraid and worried is to return and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 from the people returned, but 10,000 remained. Then the Lord said to Gideon, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. You shall put everyone who laps the water with his tongue as a dog laps in the group, and everyone who kneels down to drink in another group. Now the number of those who lapped, putting their hands to their mouth, was 300 men, but all the rest of the people knelt down to drink water. And the Lord said to Gideon, I will save you with the 300 men who lapped, and will hand the Midianites over to you. So have the other people leave, each man to his own home. Now the same night it came about that the Lord said to him, arise, go down against the camp, for I have handed it over to you. But if you are afraid to go down, go with Purah, your servant, down to the camp, that you will hear what they say, and afterwards you will have the courage to go down against the camp. So he went down with Purah, his servant, to the outposts of the army that was in the camp. Now the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the people of the east were lying in the valley, as numerous as locusts, and their camels were without number, as numerous as the sand on the seashore. When Gideon came, behold, a man was relating a dream to his friend, and he said, Behold, I had a dream. A loaf of barley bread was tumbling into the camp of Midian, and it came to the tent and struck it, so that it fell, and turned it upside down, so that the tent collapsed. And his friend replied, This is nothing other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has handed over to him Midian and all the camp. And of course, they do take over that army, and it flees with the Lord's help. So now we see the barley bread come into the picture. This is what Secrets of Heaven 7602 has to say about that story. Midian stands for those people or states who are not living good, but living good out into their lives through actions. And the barley loaf represents good actions of love in the exterior natural. So we're talking about really basic external ways of showing love. And we know that absence of love is that red dragon. Absence of doing anything on the natural world to give to others, that's the red dragon that wants to devour the new church. And the baby, the son, who will reign with a rod of iron. Again, iron is the natural plane. So by loving other people in simple ways in the natural plane, we are spreading the Lord's kingdom. You saw how it has a ripple effect. We are powerful to make changes in this world, even things such as war. The more people who are just happy because others have smiled, someone gave them a dime or a quarter so they could use the Aldi carts, anything, those people are now a little happier, and they're going to be a little more helpful and a little more kind. The church is the place where that has to begin, because the church knows how much God loves us. They receive the bread directly from the Lord. The Lord came here to love us, and he was willing to lay down his life for us. And he asks us to do the same when we realize that that is a truth, that the Lord came here to love us, and his simple command is that we do the same for others. Then we are motivated to be agents of his love, to give of ourselves, to give bread to those around us. That is how the heart and lungs preserves the whole human body. And that is the second coming, because the Lord is love. That is the second coming because the Lord is the divine human. The divine human is where love and truth are in human form. In fact, he is the divine human in the natural, which is really why he came and why he had to die and rise again, is to bring his love down to the natural. He was like a drop of water setting the first ripple in motion, the ripple of love, which just keeps growing and amplifying as it touches more and more lives, including our own. That is the second coming, and that's the divine human. Look at your neighbor and look at yourself. He is there. That is him. Male, female, all people. Non-binary, all people. Mother Teresa said it succinctly. Each one of them is Jesus in disguise. When we see this picture, we see the Lord in two people, not just one. Those who give, the love is the Lord, and they're seeing the Lord in the other. They see the good there. That is such a beautiful thing, and it's so humble. Gideon was kept from bringing in a huge army, and the Lord continued to say, less people, till he had just 300 people. This is like 300 people against a huge army. Are we really going to be able to overcome poverty, world violence, atrocities, all these terrible things that we face with simple acts of love? Yes, that is how it's going to happen. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. And I'll leave with a gratuitous picture of a coca because I want you to feel happy. I want you to be able to feel inspired to love your neighbor. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm
So we have time for some comments.
Did anybody else feel that after he was showing all those positive things and then the gun, did anybody else feel that just inside, like, what is that? Yeah, the power of an image.
First, it makes me sad that your reading was so this morning. If we could have left it on an upbeat note. The thing that really struck me, oh, Denise, I'm Denise. The thing that really struck me is that the second coming can sound very complicated, but it all comes down to simple acts of love. And it need not be more complicated than that. I like that about it.
This is Jessie. We talk about this a lot in the schools where I work. It just takes one smile, one recognition, one friendship to just make a difference in someone's life, just as Kent was saying. And sometimes it feels overwhelming that there's so many things that kids are facing, and what can I do about this? But you really can make a difference just by acknowledging someone and smiling at them, and that just gives me hope.
Dave Keating. Two things. One sentence he said bothered me. He said, "We are rewarded for our works." And I don't remember hearing an explanation. And that just reminds me of Martin Luther rebelling against the Roman Catholic Church selling indulgences. That, okay, you give us money, we'll do good works with it, and we'll get you into heaven. And so that's a reward. So I know there's an explanation in Swedenborg of what is meant by that, but I didn't hear it. And just the sentence alone just doesn't sound right to me. Number two, the story about the printer and the dime, he didn't say, I'm assuming, which I don't know if it's true, but he didn't say if the people took it or left the dime. So it sounds like everyone took the dime, which doesn't sound, sorry to mention this, but it happened to me last week at a self-service at a local store. They have a self-service area, and I happened to notice in the coin return, the one I used, 35 cents. And I looked at some other ones and saw some change, so I picked it up and went to the front desk and gave it to them, because it's not my money, and they can do with it what they want. And then I thought later, well, store security, they probably are watching people to self-service. That may give them a boost that, oh, wow, some people are honest. And the person at the front desk might think, wow, this person returned the money. They could have just walked out. So I'm hoping that was a positive thing, but I just didn't consider taking it because it wasn't mine, and it's the store's or somebody else's. So, but did everyone take the dime? Shall I assume that?
We'll have to ask Kent when he comes next year. I did want to answer your question, though, when it said about that you will be rewarded. The reward is that when you do good, it is confirmed in you. It becomes real in you, and you take that good to the next world, as opposed to that expression that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, stuff that you thought of, but you never did it.
I kind of meant that. I know the Swedenborgian ministers will explain what was meant by that, but I don't remember him doing that. He just, that naked sentence, if someone didn't know or didn't have a minister to explain to them, that might not sound right. But yes, it does have a good explanation that you just gave.
Two things occur to me. One, the nature of love is expressed in the song The Magic Penny. Love is something when you give it away, you get more of it. It never runs out. because its source is inexhaustible. And a example of that was when the Lord was breaking the fish and the bread corresponding to good. You notice it didn't run out. It just kept dividing until they actually had more than they needed and took it up.
I sleep every night with Eeyore because I'm basically an Eeyore type person, and it's really good about good intentions and good thoughts. But Russia, we talk about religion here. We don't talk about politics, but Russia broke from 1945 on. It's been kind of a world together. And right now, I'm not feeling the good intentions in myself and being here, but I'm very suspicious or just feel like the balance of power is versus love in our world.
My mom was always suspicious. This is Trevor, by the way. My mom was always suspicious of that popular phrase, do random acts of kindness. And she said they shouldn't be random. They shouldn't be random. And I noticed that in most of the examples that Kent gave, that wasn't random. The storekeeper who let the person go, they were a customer in their store. It wasn't just some random person on the street that he was giving groceries to. It was someone there. So it made me think a lot about how we do goodness to other people. And it's not just any old anybody, it's the people around us that we do it to and with.
Thank you. Going once? Going twice?
I'll say one thing. I'm probably not the only one who appreciates Kent Rogers. He's a very, very talented person and speaker, and he's wonderful to be here in person. So I would offer a thank you to our digital platform people that now make this possible, and we can have speakers recorded as Kent was today and live as we did with Carla Friedrich. So one very interesting, lovely experience I had with this reading was I wondered, I'll even take a show of hands on this, another kind of question than what Dean just did as far as that image was concerned, and I was shocked to see that image, by the way, was to listen to the story of Gideon and the Midianites, and I was saying, wow, the Bible is just full of interesting stories. You cannot make that stuff up. A show of hands, does anybody realize, wow, but the Bible is such an interesting set of stories? Raise your hand if you felt that way listening to that. I'm reminded of it. My God, what a drama. And what, listen to that. A dream, take your servant. And then you don't need 3,000, 4,000, you need 300. And here's how you'll find the 300. I mean, you cannot make that up. All right, so one final comment on that is just playing around. I'm obviously in a playful mood. I love to use the word converse at least once a week, and not the sneaker. So we could illustrate the term converse by realizing, as I heard it, and anyone could say, no, Gardner, that's not what he said. But the examples, by and large, which are inspiring, so this is inspiring talk, were of a giver, and the report was, through the studies as I heard it, was based on the effect in the receiver. It was the good that the receiver did that made their life happier, that then caused them to do something good. So that would be an example of a giver, receiver, with the effect in the receiver. Okay, so the converse of that, which I do not believe was reported, so I'll just mention it, would be the explicit effect on the giver. Now, in these cases, the giver was a scientific researcher, so it was simply a scientific study. But a way to analyze the same idea in real life, not as a scientific study, but you and I, would be to realize, a similarly simple act in this camp would be to know that there are two effects, the effect that one can observe on the receiver if you're the giver, and the effect on you as the giver. So, and I'll just give a quick example. Walking around camp, it's very possible to just walk past someone, catch their eye, make eye contact, and smile. And in fact, that's a good thing. And you'll notice that the other person probably will smile back, and you'll say, wow, that person feels good, which was what the study, I think, showed. But the smiler feels good. And then I'll close by saying, bring in Asia here. Thich Nhat Hanh has lots of teaching about a simple smile. That, you know, the way, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way. And so a smile, holding a smile, is a peaceful way of being, and it changes the person who's smiling. So to give a smile is to receive a smile. Okay.
Here's my smile. I'm going to bring it to, oh, you don't have any more? Okay. Yeah, okay, I'll be right there. I'm going to take advantage of the mic while I have it. What you were just saying about what we receive when we give, I lead a chaplain support group in the Council of Ministers. We have 5 or 6 chaplains who are currently working. And at one point, somebody lifted up, and I've worked in hospice, so this is particularly poignant for me, but somebody lifted that up to say, I get so much out of being with people. My heart fills up so much. And it's like we can't believe we're getting paid to do this job. And it's such a gift. And there was a moment when we all received that so deeply that we were just silent. Nobody could say anything else because we were just feeling that being with someone in need and being able to be there for them, it doesn't feel like giving. It feels like you're receiving, and it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And I know anyone who works in the social services knows that feeling.
Trevor, again, I'd like to underline and emphasize something that Gard said at the beginning of his comments, and that is our tech crew. Our tech crew does just an amazing job for us, and they do such an amazing job that other churches and other summer camps and our entire denomination is looking to our tech program here as a role model on how to do it right. And it's just amazing, and they deserve all the support we can give them.
Smile from Christina. That's beautiful. And we got a nice smile from Christina when we did that. Becky's not there right now, and that's the beauty of the tech crew. Becky can be off. Okay. Anyone else want to comment?
Oh, maybe I shouldn't have, but when Gardner said how interesting so many stories in the Bible are, I just remembered a lot of times I really don't like the Old Testament. I know there has internal meaning, thank goodness, but from Abraham on, it's all literally happened. And there's so many nasty, bloody stories in the Old Testament. I think they do more to drive people away from, wow, if that's God, I don't want anything to do with that God, you know. And so the few very interesting, wow, that's a unique story. That is true. I understand that, but in general, I really, personally, I really don't like a lot of the Old Testament taken literally.
And personally, I did not think that much of Christianity until I found Swedenborg for that very reason. Well, let's thank Kent, even though he's not here. He might be listening to this recording someday. Thank you, Kent, for a wonderful and inspiring lecture. Okay, so we have a little bit more break between now and 10.